got her backed up into a shady spot. Just idling, happy as can be. We got some projects coming up. We got to be able to move materials around here on the farm, and we'll need to sometimes leave them materials on the bed, so this will be the easiest truck to do that with. Let's get the brakes fixed. Been a minute since that wheel's been on. One day I'll get to washing a project before I start on it. Chevrolet's been using the A-arm setup for a long time. This is on a 1-ton truck too. That's pretty interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but got grease alamites on all the joints too. It's pretty cool. Been a long time since this thing's had a bath. Mud just caked on. Whoa. There actually ain't no slack in the suspension, believe it or not. Screw on dust cap. Remember when all cars was like this? Alright, we're going to have to loosen this so that we can turn this brake hose. The brake hose actually looks pretty decent. But we're going to have to pull this line off, and then there's 2 bolts right below that line to pull the wheel cylinder out of it. Not much room in there to get that out. Took us a minute to fumble them bolts out. There we go. Well, after a little wash, get the sand off. This is why you have a flatbed, so you can work on stuff on the bed. Even with them boots, especially with brake fluid, it still gets in there I don't know how old these are, but I'm gonna clean these pins up. I don't know how old these are, but it says made in USA on it. These are pretty simple. That's all there is to it. A spring with a couple of pistons, plungers, whatever you want to call them. Seal on each end. And your actuator pins, what I'm going to call them. These are actually still in really good shape, believe it or not. And you got your bleeder screw. Clean it all up in a quartz washer. That bore is actually still pretty good. These have no rust pitting in them. You'd want to replace them if they had rust pitting in there. Same with these, just discolored on the outside. No rust really. We're going to clean all that all around the side and that out of the bore. A lot of people use like a cylinder home for it. Kind of like the ones you'd use to deglaze a engine cylinder with. But they got small ones for these. But I don't have one. Imagine that. All we've got is a die grinder with a flat wheel. We're going to be extra careful not to remove any material. We're just going to take that discoloration out of it pretty much. Beautiful. I hope the rest of them are in this good a shape. Looks like this one was replaced not terribly long ago. It's been over 10 years though. Pretty much do the same to these. All these pieces cleaned up pretty good. Now obviously, if that bore's worn any, if it's got rust pitting or grooves or anything in it, just chuck it and get you a new one. These are in really good shape. They actually look like they haven't been used hardly at all. Somebody went through this truck at some point. So mainly all that's hurt is the seals from sitting. Honestly, if we cleaned them up and put them back in there, they'd probably be good for a long time again. But now I did check into just going ahead and buying 4 new ones. But just one of these for this truck is $23, I believe. And I could get the seal kits for $4, so it's worth doing if yours are in really good shape and have low use like this. You're just freshening it up because it's sitting. But probably better off just to buy new ones. Since we have it off, we're going to use a socket to pull our bleeder out. That way we don't end up stripping it, especially after it's been sitting so long. So we're going to clean this out. More than likely you got dirt stopped up in the end of it. After I bleed brakes, nowadays I usually end up putting a vacuum cap over it to keep dirt out of it. Helps in the long run. I like to take a little rubber piston, soak it in a little bit of your .3. I like to put a little bit of grease on those. And then I put grease in the end of the piston there. That way these pins can ride on that a lot easier on them. A little bit of grease in this track around the outside. It'll help to keep the dirt and the water out of it. Keep it from rusting up so bad. Flip it over. Put your spring in there. There you go. One very greasy wheel cylinder. Keep it from rusting quite so bad. Probably would have been nice to put a little paint on it. Just a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, because you are going to have to use that. There we go, that'll work. Now before we hook this back up to the brake system, we need to bleed the old .3 out of it, because sure enough it's going to have some water and dirt in it. Nasty as them were. So try to clean your brake lines out. So the more I wrestled with trying to put them bolts back in there, I realized it wasn't going to happen like that. It won't line up, so we're just going to go ahead and pull the back end plate on. It ain't too hard. You got one bolt there and there. Now, unfortunately, you do have to pull the brake shoes off. We got all the right tools for doing this, just not here. And they make a special tool for pulling these clips off these little pins. I wonder if there's anything even used old school drum brakes anymore. I haven't worked on much newer stuff to know. There we go. Probably should have done that to start with. We will on the next side. There you go. Now the bolts will be easy to put in. Struggled for about 10-15 minutes trying to get those to start. They ain't gonna start like that. What's even crazy to me is look how fresh this bolt looks. 1966. This thing still looks really good. Now we got our backing plate pins back in. There we go. I actually haven't worked on a set of drum brakes in a hot minute. Ain't a whole lot left of these drums, but they'll do fine for right now on the farm. We'll have to either redo them or come up with some disc brakes or something when we start really driving it. Now on our hose and our brake line, I'm going to take and put just a small amount of anti-seize on the threads, make it where we can service it later. Alright, our grease in our hub looks really good, so we're not going to worry about it. We'll probably clean it up if we ever drive it. Got a lot more to do before we do that, so be just good enough for now. This threaded spindle cap's just the coolest. We'll make it a little bit easier to take off and put on next time. Pretty interesting. These lug nuts are actually pretty much a castle nut. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like that or what. What'd y'all do with the other two? There we go. Just 3 more wheels to do. It's under here jacking the rear end up. Figured some of y'all might appreciate this. It's cool. Look at how they did the gooseneck ball. That is a piece of I-beam. Cut the bottom out of it so the axle would fit up through there. 3/4 bar stock going to the frame. That's crazy. It's gonna be a repeat of the front. Just got dual wheels to deal with. Those old hub-centric wheels fit on there pretty good, especially with a little rust. Already smell that gear oil. Wouldn't hurt to do an oil change on it. I don't have the proper socket, of course, so to some people's horror. I'll pick up the correct socket before we tear into it again. Just gonna have to do it for now. Somebody's been into it before. They didn't bend the tabs down. Of course, you got your washer. That bearing ain't gonna come out this end of it. It had a little bit of water in that oil in that hub. I'd rather not seen that. There ain't no rust in it, so that's not ideal though. The old hub has been used a bit in its day. Got a mountain of brake dust and dirt and rocks in here. Surprisingly, the old hub seal wasn't leaking at all though. Still pretty clean. Somebody tie wired the bracket over to the adjuster. We're gonna pull the backing plate off just like the front. That backing plate was stuck on there pretty good. Of course, that seal protector ain't gonna let us pull it off of there none too easy, so since we got it that far out, we're just gonna pull the wheel cylinder off. When it gets restored, all this stuff will be painted. I'll be honest with you, I don't have great luck with getting brake lines loose, but somehow those are coming apart. See what this rear one looks like. Looks a lot better on the inside. At least one side of it does anyway. Fair moving. Looks better, but we're still gonna clean it out. Alright, we got our backing plate on there with the hardware, and where the backing plate goes lubed up with anti-seize. Apparently that's going to be stuck. Now I'm going to do a big no-no and just poke this back on here with the drum on it, just for running around here on the farm for right this second. That is a terrible idea, but I'm gonna have to end up ordering new brakes, and since we had a little bit of water in that hub, we're gonna go ahead and order some new seals to go in the rear end. So we'll end up pulling that cover off and cleaning that out, seeing what the rear end looks like. But we just need this thing moving and holding brake fluid enough to stop with the front end, just for a few projects till we can get the brake parts and stuff ordered to move it around here. Now there ain't no way I would ever run something like that down the road. It's really not even good to drive it around here in the yard with that like that, but we don't want metal on metal from the drum, so this thing will just end up sliding around side to side on us, whether you in forward and reverse. But we'll be tearing right back into this not too far from now, so we ain't too worried about it. But now we know what else we got to order for parts. That's half the battle. I know this is an oil bath axle, but still like to have a little bit of grease on it to assemble it, especially for your seal. That's pretty interesting. The gasket that come off of it's actually aluminum. So we just put RTV on that and RTV on our axle. So Alright, I got my wife to help me bleed the brakes and got it stopping now. It ain't perfect, but it'll get us around here on the farm. At least now we know what we need for parts for the brakes. A little bit for the rear end. But anyway, we got the carburetor to fix now. I actually rebuilt it when Dad got it. That's been probably 5 or 6 years ago now, but looks to be leaking out of near about every spot of it. So I found this I got us a carb kit to put in it. Choke cable. Little lines for the vacuum for your distributor advance. See what we can do with it. Little rinky dinky air filter. Now this old girl still ran pretty good. Started good. The problem we was really having leaking fuel everywhere. So we're just really gonna put the gaskets in it mainly. See what kind of shapes it in. Pretty brass floats. Not too bad. These little clips are so easy to lose. I actually ordered this kit off of Rock Auto, I believe. It's a walker. It actually says made in USA on it. That's surprising. I don't know about any more. There's no telling how long this has been on the shelf. Probably order another couple of them. But of course it comes with about 20 different gaskets, depending on the model of the carburetor, you know. It's made to kind of fit a good handful at one time. Got a new needle and seat, new hardware, springs. Most all that's good on our carburetor, so we're gonna roll with it. So we're certainly gonna save a bunch of this for parts, but mainly just using the gasket for right now. This carburetor is in pretty good shape. We are going to put this on here since we have it. Try not to break this plastic. There you go. Probably wouldn't hurt to lube that up just a little bit. This thing is beautiful. We're literally just going to put it back together. Gotta put the gasket on first. Pretty interesting build. Needle still looks really good. Probably getting it dirtier by handling it than it was. Pretty cool. Had to dig around for it, but found one for the bottom. Plop that back on there and see how it does. Alright, now before we crank it up, got another problem to fix that I've been wanting to fix. The other day I pulled the emergency brake, and they had a nice loop on the hose for this aftermarket oil pressure gauge. Had a perfect loop in it where that handle on the e-brake could catch it, so we ended up just clipping it off with some vice grips. That worked pretty good, but let's get it fixed up right. If you're going to install these, don't ever put that plastic line on there. Good way to burn a motor up. So it comes out of that hole in the firewall down to a spot on the block right behind the dipstick. Let's get that changed out. I just bought an old kit from the local parts house because I forgot to order it, but ain't that pretty? Alright, we got us a new oil pressure line. Pretty copper. Got a proper loop down there to keep it from breaking too. Alright, let's see how she fires up. We're going to turn it over a little bit and get fuel pumped to the carburetor. She usually primes pretty quick. Hopefully that solves our carburetor leak problem. This thing's ran good ever since we bought it. Oil pressure gauge works, it ain't leaking. What a sweetheart of an old truck. We ain't too worried about the brakes, but we do want to bring it to a halt sometime, so we're going to end up ordering the rear shoes and all here pretty soon. That way we can do it all right. Especially once we get to restoring it. But that'll do it for now. These older trucks like this is a lot of fun to work on. Nice to not have to unplug 10 wires to do something. Or pull half the motor off, you know. Easy to do. That's going to wrap this one up. Thank y'all for watching.